next I'm going to invite up on stage someone that takes pride in helping people write fake news.
Exactly. Thank you very much.
Should I say something about you, or do you want to present yourself?
You can, yeah.
Yeah. So her name is Marije Arentze. She comes from Netherlands. The organization is called DROG, and the topic of her talk is vaccinating news consumers against fake news and disinformation.
Exactly. As I said, I'm going to have to warn you a bit, because what I'm going to tell you is going to sound very counterintuitive. And at some point during my talk, you might even start doubting my motives. But bear with me, because I hope that I will leave you with some new, interesting insights to discuss later on. Because like the presenter just said, I teach people how to make their own fake news. We own a few fake news websites. We manage the first Dutch troll army. And we recently organized an event where we tried to destroy the European Parliament elections with a disinformation campaign. Why would I do this? Because if you want to learn how disinformation works and to really understand the mechanisms behind it, the best way to do this is by making it yourself. So this is, in one sentence, the philosophy of our company. We constantly put people in the shoes of fake news mongers, have them think like they think, have them do what they do, in order to invite them to think like the bad guy and to try and trigger a defense mechanism. To this end, we developed a game. It's called Bad News. You can all play it online at getbadnews.com. Please do it after the session and not right now, because then I'll lose your attention. Because it's a really funny game. This is the feedback that we get all the time. And in this game, the players have to make their own fake news. They have to gain as many followers as possible, while at the same time maintaining their credibility as a news source. During the game, they have to earn certain badges, and these badges correspond to techniques that are often used in disinformation campaigns. For example, they get points for posing as a credible news source. They get points for invoking emotion. They get points for sowing distrust and polarization. And the idea behind this is that we try to trigger this defense mechanism, as I said. We call this pre-bunking instead of debunking, because we intervene before the news is read and believed instead of afterwards. We do not do this on our own. We work together with the University of Cambridge on this. My colleague Jon Rosenbeek works there as a visiting fellow at the Social Decision Making Lab, and he does research into so-called vaccines against disinformation. And this is based on a theory from social psychology called the inoculation theory. And that theory states that you can vaccinate people against misleading information by exposing them to a weakened version of it, so they learn to recognize it and build resistance. So-called mental antibodies against fake news. And he included a survey in the game, a so-called pre-post survey. Before and after playing the game, the players are shown 6 news messages, 4 fake ones and 2 real ones, and they have to judge based on a scale from 1 to 10 how credible they think the news is. The first results show that people do get better at spotting the fake news, and at the same time, there is no decrease in how reliable they think the real news is. So this is a really good, promising first research. We have published our first paper in the Journal of Risk Research, and this immediately became the most cited article in the history of the journal. And another one is now on the way about the digital game. This was based on a paper-based version of the game. This is my colleague. He was live on CNN in February to talk about how the game works. Now, I have a question for you. Who of you thinks this is real? Hands. I see 1, 2 hands. It's actually real. You can look it up online and you can check it on YouTube if you're interested. But this research is not the only thing we're doing. We're also working in a consultancy. We have recently advised the British House of Commons on how to deal with disinformation. We work for the Dutch Armed Forces and the Ministry of Interior Affairs. We advise the Vice President of the European Commission on how to deal with disinformation. And we also work in education. As I said, we manage our own Dutch troll army, the first one. And in these workshops, which we do in high schools a lot, we basically teach people how to make their own fake news. We say at the beginning of the workshop, here we have a WordPress website. For example, we have the DutchPost.nl and the New AmsterdamTimes.com. Those are our websites. And we tell them, okay, you are becoming the journalists of this online medium now. And in the next hour and a half, you are going to write your own fake news message. And then you're going to spread it among your friends. And then we're going to do a competition who attracts the most followers to the website. Especially this competition element always works really well and gets kids really hyped up to start working. And we walk around and we explain them the techniques behind disinformation. Everyone from outside who clicks on the link automatically gets a pop-up that says, you have been fooled, this is fake news, go to our website to learn more, and while you're here, spread some fake news yourself so you can help us vaccinate the world against disinformation. Another thing we do with our troll army is we organize these kind of events. This one was in The Hague in last June. This is me. For the record, I don't actually take pride in trying to destroy the EU. I do not think that that is the way to go. But what I do think is that the EU is under a serious threat of disinformation campaigns, and that learning to think like the bad guy is a very good first step in solving this problem. So this is more to give a rather humorous twist to the matter, which we do a lot more often in our activities. So what we did at this event, we invited Lyudmila Savchuk. I don't know if anyone here knows her. She is a journalist who worked at the Internet Research Agency in St. Petersburg, the infamous troll factory there. And she came to The Hague to explain to us in detail how the troll factory works and how you build your own troll army. So at this event, we put together a team of some really clever people. We had some policy analysts, some strategists, some journalists, some activists, some technicians, and we basically asked them, if you would want to destroy the European Parliament elections with a disinformation campaign, what would you come up with? And you compare compare this to some kind of ethical hacking, in the sense that we simulated this entire campaign, and afterwards we shared all our findings with the Parliament, because for them this was a really good case study to learn and think like the bad guy, and they were actually quite happy to hear what we came up with and what is possible. Because, as might not surprise you very much, it's not very difficult to come up with things to discredit the European Union and to burn the house to the ground, so to say. I gave a similar talk like this a few weeks ago at an event of the European Commission, EuropeCom, and I had some people in the room looking at me quite uncomfortably when I started sharing the things that we came up with to try to discredit them, which meant it was a success, I hope. So we divided the team into several departments. For example, we had the clone and doctoring department, which was responsible for creating fake news accounts and nurturing them to build credibility. We had the sleeper agents department, and they were cloning real news websites and feeding them with content to build credibility as well. And they came up with several campaigns. For example, the hashtag honest work, which would mean, which would spread the message that we are the good people, the honest people. We understand you, we know what's good for you, and those officials in the EU are just a bunch of corrupt, lying globalists who want no good for you at all. We had them create the hashtag #BurnFee, which would be a viral social media campaign of people making selfies, burning their voting ballots, as if saying, I'm not taking part of this, this is not my EU, let's all join. And we identified, for example, José Manuel Barroso as a proof of this corruption, because he, I don't know if anyone knows, but if everyone knows, but he was the former the president of the European Commission. He now works for Goldman Sachs. So we said, okay, this is a proof of this this revolving door policy around here. He has a really well-paid job now where he doesn't do anything, and all because of his friends within the European Commission. So this was a proof of this ingrained institutional corruption within the EU. So this was, as you might imagine, a really fun and informative day, and also the European Parliament was quite happy to see what we came up with as a case study, of course. We also do this with the kids now. We work together with the Committee of the Regions. We recently organized a similar event with a group of youth ambassadors from the Eastern Partnership countries. So we're scaling this up through Europe as well. But in general, in conclusion, and what I think people should take from this is that we should not be all too scared for disinformation. If you see how it works and if you're able to expose the tactics, you will see how plainly ridiculous it is sometimes. We should embrace it for how great it fits its purpose, and at the same time we should create our own playing field where we make the rules and we set the parameters. Humor helps a lot, especially with kids, as does a notch of absurdism every now and then, because it makes the things all the more lighter and easier to talk about. That was it. Is there time for questions, or what should we do?
Maybe one. If there is anyone that has one burning question.
How do you keep it safe?
How do I keep it safe? Yeah, that's the question we get most often, actually. Also, a lot of people asking us, aren't you giving people the wrong idea? And I think the first results also of the research show that this is not necessarily the effect of what we're doing, because we keep it in a safe ecosystem, and this happens on such a large scale that it's very difficult for one kid in one high school who listens to us, if he then wants to start his own fake news imperium, he needs a lot of resources, a lot of money. This is not something that you do so easily. And I think the fact that we trigger this defense mechanism and appeal to this moral sense already makes it safe in that sense.
Cool. Thank you very much.